You are listening to the REI Mastermind Podcast. Join JD as he chats with industry-leading real estate experts and professionals. We learn from their experience and uncover the strategies to their success that we can implement into our own businesses, and we can drive immediate results today. They share their experience and wisdom as we build a foundation to our own success. This is the REI Mastermind Network.
We have Corey Geary on the call here today. Corey, I really appreciate your time. And Corey, I'm going to direct everybody to your Facebook page because there's a lot of great resources there. And it looks like we have a lot of common friends on that platform. So look for Corey Geary, and you spell the last name Geary. And Corey is a 7-figure wholesaler, nationwide wholesaler. And we're going to talk about that, plus some strategies that he leverages, including something called Novations. And that's a new term to a listener. So we're going to really kind of spend a little time on that and define that. But I really appreciate your time, Corey. Thanks for joining me here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm truly blessed to be here to share my journey with you. Thank you.
So, Corey, let's start things off with, it's always fascinating to see how people have gotten into this. How did you get into wholesaling?
So how I got into it's kind of funny. So I got into it in the end of 2016, and I was a blackjack dealer working at the casino, making pretty good money. Worked that job for about 17 years, saved up, about 150 grand or so. And we're watching that flip or flop show with Tarek Al-Mousad. I'm there with my girlfriend at the time. She was a realtor, part-time blackjack dealer, but she wasn't doing a lot of real estate. And we're watching the show one night, and she's like, "Hey, why don't you flip a house so I can list it?" And I was like, "I don't know. Why don't I flip a house? It looks easy enough. 30 minutes, you make $80,000. Let's give it a try." Right? That's kind of how they portray it in Hollywood. The next morning, I'm on my morning run because I love to run. And I see one of those bandit signs that say fix and flip, buy price, 250,000 ARV 350, something to that nature. I stop on my run. I call the bandit sign, and it was not New Western, it's the other one, Net Worth Realty. And I bought the house. I saw it as a sign from God that showed me that, hey, this is what you need to be doing. So I saw it, called it, bought the house. It took me 6 months to fix and flip that house, and I made $8,000. So that was my very first deal into real estate. And
then you got the bug.
I got the bug. So bought a second one, went to some networking events, RIAs here locally, signed up with some wholesalers list. Bought my second house. I made I bought my second house, made $20,000 on that one. And on my third house, I thought knew what I was doing. I thought I was a big boy, and I bought 4 houses all at once. And the contract they were using, we didn't see eye to eye on things, so we had to switch contractors. But the unfortunate part of the story is that the new contractor we got was even worse, and he took us to the cleaners and robbed us of all of our money. And between the down payment we put down on him, the holding costs, and the rehab money he stole from us in those 4 properties, we lost about $250,000. And it really reset me back to ground zero, where I was like, okay, I lost my previous flip money. I lost my 401k money that I pulled out of the casino. And, I lost any savings that I had. And said I didn't want to give up. So I literally Googled, because I wanted to know how wholesalers got their deals. And I Googled, how do wholesalers get deals? And then Sean Terry popped up. And I dove into his courses and joined up for his mentorship and masterminds. And he's been part of my journey even up to this date. I'm blessed to call him a friend. I have his phone number. We talk all the time. And he's just been a true blessing in my journey, in my growth in wholesaling, and just the whole nationwide stuff that I'm doing now. So that was my intro into wholesaling. I put out some bandit signs, how he taught, did some direct mail. And it took me about, I think, 8 to 10 months, and I got my first wholesale deal, made $10,000. I actually sold that deal to the wholesaler that I bought my second deal on. So it was like almost I reversed the script. And that was how I cut my teeth into wholesaling.
So, you have a nationwide model now. Is that pretty much what you're advising people to do, like right off, or do you typically suggest what you started off and started in your backyard?
Out of the gate, I always recommend starting your own backyard. Get to know your own, property values, the lay of the land. Get belly to belly with the sellers. Get a feel for them. Really conduct business in your own backyard. And then what I recommend people doing is after they're starting to do 5, 6, 7 deals a month, and they're kind of consistent with that, and they want to scale. Then go into the nationwide model, because there's a lot more opportunity in the nationwide. But you want to have a good feel of how the business is conducted with title companies, with the buyers, how to talk to the sellers before you try to go into that model.
Sure. And then based on what you've experienced now, where would you typically suggest people start in finding that first deal?
Well, finding the first deal, the best way right now is cold calling, text, and RVM, because that is like the cheapest way at your cost per lead and cost per contract. Just get on the phone, start cold calling these sellers, pull some data in your local market, skip trace it, and just have those conversations with them. And I call it the gateway drug in the wholesaling, because it's a very low barrier of entry. You can also start by door knocking. If you have absolutely no money, you can pull the pre-foreclosures list out of PropStream and just go door knock them. I mean, you're going to have a lot of competition in that arena because there's a lot of people doing it, but you're still going to get deals. If you keep consistent with it, you can still get deals. And then as you're starting to get some of those deals, put that money into marketing, then start cold calling, text, maybe RVM, and then maybe eventually down the road, start transitioning into Google Ads, PPC, which is what the bulk of our business is now.
Yeah. So one of the things that when it comes to wholesaling, everybody's been told that this is where to start. This is where you get into real estate investing with little to no money. Based on that and what you've experienced, what are some of the facts versus myths when it comes to that concept?
The facts are definitely you can get into a little or no money. You're just going to put a lot of legwork into it. Some of the myths that a lot of the bigger gurus portray, is how simple and easy it is, and it's not. You're going to have to work long hours, long days, and you're going to have to put a lot of time and effort into it, and you're going to encounter a lot of problems. Title problems, seller problems, buyer problems. So they don't really portray that too much when they're marketing, they're coaching, courses and platforms and stuff like that. So the myth's true. You can get into a little or no money, just put in a lot of work, but also be mindful that it is a lot of work and you're going to encounter a lot of problems along the way, a lot of speed bumps, and they don't really talk about that part of the business.
Sure. So you gave a few strategies there of how you could start with little to no money when it comes to marketing. Are there any other strategies that you would recommend, outside of door knocking and cold calling? And some people may not even understand how skip tracing works. So let's say they have no money. They're going to start things off from scratch. Where would they begin?
Yeah, I would begin by door knocking. I mean, that's me personally, and that's how kind of we broke into the industry. I mean, you can go out and put flyers on doors, networking through RIAs, helping people JV deals, talking to buyers, getting some buyers lined up so you can JV those deals with other wholesalers. So just getting around groups, of like-minded people, that will help you accelerate your path, your journey in the beginning. But that was the way we started. And there's no really new that I know of cutting edge techniques other than the door knocker, cold calling, SMS, RVM, and direct mail, which that's going to be a little bit more capital intensive. And then, going out and putting out flyers on doors and just, having those conversations when you're in the grocery store and you're starting to talk to the person behind you, let them know what you do. I buy and sell houses. I'm a fix and flipper, or, I'm looking to buy houses for cash. Always talk about what you do is very important, because then you're going to start getting noticed. Talk about it on social media. If you're talking about it always on social media, people are going to start bringing you deals, or they're going to start recognizing that you're playing in that space. So social media is a very powerful tool. I've been documenting my journey on social media since the very beginning, and that's how I was able to build up, the following I have on Facebook. So those are the main things, man. It's just get out networking, door knock, and that's it. And then once you start getting a little bit of money, transition to telecommunications, And then from there, start going into bigger marketing channels like direct mail and PPC.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. So when you got into, you started in your backyard and then you made the switch to national, what drove that decision?
The drove decision is the wanting to scale. We were doing about 8 to 10 deals a month, and it was just we were not really scaling too much. And I knew a couple other heavy hitters that were doing the nationwide model in my masterminds, and so I was taught by them and it did networking to them, saying how much success they've had by going nationwide. And so we switched over in the beginning of last year from our local model to nationwide model. Now, one big mistake that we made, and I'd never recommend this to anybody, is I turned off all the local marketing and just turned on Google Ads PPC nationwide. And in the first month, I lost $70,000. Second month was like 50, and its third month was 30. And then we started to catch that traction. So I always recommend to everybody, if you're going to go and do this nationwide model, make sure you don't turn off what's paying the bills currently. So if you're making money by cold calling in your local market, keep doing that and just make this a small little arm, that you're slowly scaling up, and just slowly transition. Just don't do it all at once like I did, and because you will lose a lot of money trying to make that transition.
Yeah, let's spend a little time on that, on PPC, because I think I've even hired a service to try to manage PPC, and frankly, it wasn't a very good fit because all they ever have experience with is maybe realtors and brokerages, and then I got thrown into that pool, and I saw very little results. Are you managing your PPC directly, or do you hire a company to do that?
So we manage our own PPC. I had the same kind of issue you had. We outsourced it at first. It was costing us it was between 8 and 10 grand a quarter. And so right out of the gate, you're already 10 grand in the hole. And all those big companies are doing is they're outsourcing it with VAs. And the VAs just really can't make those counterintuitive decisions to know if it's relevant to your business, like managing your negative keywords, managing the ad copy, knowing what search terms are the most effective. So that was our biggest problem. So I took it upon myself to learn it, bring it in-house. And the way everyone's teaching it right now is really the wrong way. Everyone's teaching it to be very narrow, specific on their market, try to control their cost per click, and try to control their keywords by doing exact match. This is the way that you're going to get cost per conversions up to $500 to $700. That's what we were getting here in Phoenix, where my cost per conversion nationwide is at $43. So it was a game changer. You don't want to constrict and control Google. Google is very smart, and so if you utilize Google to your advantage, it will learn who your prospect is and show your ads to lookalike audience, and then driving down your cost per conversion in the long run.
Sure. So, that's interesting you say that, because, especially in the ad game, everybody's trying to squeeze as much return on that investment as possible. So it's natural for us to try to restrict and dial it in as much as possible to try to do that. But what you're saying is that Google can actually do that naturally if you give them the reins a little bit.
You absolutely can. If you're doing like phrase match or broad match keywords, and then you're doing the strategy, what's called maximize conversions, you're allowing Google learn through the conversion process who your prospect is, and it will show your ads to lookalike audience. Google's way smarter than us. They have over 2,000 data points on every single person in the United States. So, let Google work for you. That's what we're paying them for.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So as you were going to a nationwide model, how did talking to sellers change?
The biggest shift is a couple things, I guess. You're going to be doing it all over the phone. It's all virtual. So the mind shift of, we're not going to be sitting belly to belly with them anymore and just doing this over the phone was huge for us. So you're going to have to be diving into their problems, figuring out exactly why they're selling the property and how you're the right solution for them over the phone, creating that rapport over the phone. So that was probably one of the first most difficult parts of the shift. The second most difficult was learning how to comp properties and evaluate them accurately in other markets, because when you're playing only in your market, you know how to comp properties. Someone could throw me, a couple cross streets and I would know what the houses are worth in that area because I flipped houses over there. And when you go nationwide, it's a lot different. So you're just going to have to learn how to underwrite deals in these different markets. So you need to go super deep on if you're going to be offering cash to them on these properties, if you're going nationwide, because it's a learning experience. And in the beginning, out of every 5 contracts we lock up, maybe 1 would close. So it was a struggle in the beginning. We're sending a lot of contracts over to the disposition department that was just not, we're monetizing on, and it was just spinning our wheels. So it took a lot of efforts of just trial and error of getting that dialed in. And we've gotten it dialed in a lot better, but it's not perfect.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how you do handle your due diligence then on the property. Do you have boots on the ground, or is it all done virtually somehow?
It's mostly done virtually. So you're getting pictures taken by the seller sent to you, or the tenants that are in place, get them to take pictures for you. And if you can't, just work out access to the property, and then we'll post like a Craigslist ad for somebody to go out and take pictures for us. And maybe we'll pay them like $70. And that's how we're getting the pictures in the property. And we're basing our valuation off those pictures. And if the seller's taking the pictures and they're misrepresenting the property, and like, say, for example, buyer goes out there and goes, well, you didn't tell us about the big hole in the roof. There was no picture of that. Well, then we're going to go back and renegotiate with the seller and let them know why we're renegotiating, because they were not completely truthful on the whole condition. So
one of the strategies that is a little different that you do is this novations.
Yes.
And I know that's a new term for a lot of people. So can you define that?
I will. So one of our problems doing this nationwide model is, we're getting a lot of leads in these more rural markets that there's not a lot of investor activity, but there's MLS activity. And so we're like, okay, it was always that question: how do we monetize these MLS type deals and still, monetize them? So we were trying to lock them up as cash, trying to sell them, to investors. The problem was that, if there's no investor activity, it's not going to sell. So we came across the Novation process, the Novation concept. And what this is we're locking the property up from the seller, listing it on the MLS for FHA, VA, and conventional buyers. And so we're wholesaling it on market to end users, not an investor. And there's many ways that we do this. We use a power of attorney to list the property in the MLS and sign the offers on their behalf, or the attorney in fact. And there's a couple other instruments to use, like the notice of interest, that way we can get paid off from the lien. We put a lien in the property, and that's how we get proof of the conventional financing to pay our fee out. So through this process, we call it our concierge service, and the sellers love it because we're telling them we're not your buyer. We're being very upfront with them. We're going to bring a buyer to the table we're going to partner with, because we're really good at bringing buyers since we're investors and fix and flippers. And we're going to do that through using local realtors, our buyer network, and MLS. So it's completely upfront with the homeowner exactly what we're doing. And then we're just telling them that you don't got to worry about anything. You don't got to worry about the inspection. You don't worry about the appraisal. You don't worry about dealing with realtors. And you don't have to worry about the title work. You can just sit back and collect your check. And so a lot of them are loving it because we're able to pay more for the property than normal that would not work for a cash offer, because we're selling it to the traditional way.
Sure. So based on what you just said there, you're taking it upon yourself to go through, a buyer's due diligence period and making any updates or changes to the property on the seller's behalf. That's correct. So we're letting the inspectors tell us what we need to do to the property to get approved for the financing. There was a property just last week as an FHA buyer. Their inspector said, well, it needs to have a stove. So we, went on Lowe's, the local Lowe's, ordered the stove, had it delivered. The realtor who was representing the buyer met the person out there, had the stove installed, and we closed it on Friday last week, and we made $42,000 on that deal. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I was going to actually ask you for an example of how this works, but I mean that was a great one. So okay. Well, just to remind everybody, if you like to hear more from Corey, I direct you to his Facebook page, Corey Geary, and his last name is spelled Geary. And I'll make sure to have that link in the show notes. But Geary and his team also do some training, especially regarding this. So look for New Age Wholesaling for some information on how to sign up for that information. Is there any other place that you'd like people directed to? Corey?
Well, right now, the Facebook's great, and you can DM me right from Facebook to talk more about it. I'm also on Instagram at Geary Corey, so it's backwards, and that's the best places to get a hold of me and talk more about how we can work together. And that's what we're teaching, is the whole nationwide wholesaling from A to Z, with PPC as your marketing and Novations as one of your exit strategies.
So I'm going to take you back into time here now, as I want to circle back and give those people who are brand new to wholesaling. One of the things that I get asked quite often is, what do I say? If you're going on that door knocking or driving for dollars, if you will, and you go up to a door and knock on that door and somebody actually answers, give somebody what they should possibly start with.
I mean, introduce yourself. It's going to be a cold conversation from the beginning. You want to when you're door knocking, you want to step a few feet back from the door. You never want to be at the door, because that's very aggressive and intimidating. Step a few feet back, introduce yourself, and ask them if they'd be interested in selling their house. And if they are interested, ask them why, and go into their pain and why exactly they would want to be selling their house, and exactly how you can be the solution to their problem. That's the conversation you want to have, and just creating that rapport with them, getting to understand who they are as a person. So that is the best way. The best way to really get good at it is repetition, doing it over and over and over again. You're not going to be good at it at first. There's no way. I would recommend, doing some training on acquisitions. There's a lot of good people out there who focus just on that type of scripting. John Martinez is one, just the top of my head. Another one is Steven Morales. And they focus just on how those conversations sound when you're talking to the seller. But yeah, it's great rapport, knowing who you are as a person, knowing who they are as a person, and then figuring out exactly what their pain point is and how you can be the solution to their problem.
Yeah, and I'd point to the previous appearances. John has been on my show here a couple times now, and he always brings a ton of value. So if you're struggling with scripts and how to talk to sellers, I mean, great resource. He
is. I've been to his boot camp, and I've gone through all his training, and I love how he approaches the conversation. And we even put our acquisition agents through that training, so they understand, how the set sounds, how it sounds when you're going into pain, how the picture perfect looks, going through deal killers. It's just great, a great lineup of for your first initial conversation with that seller. So, yeah. So knowing what you know now, and if you had to start all over again, what would you have done? What would you do differently? I would have got a mentor and coach right out of the gate, because I would feel like, I wouldn't have got that big, loss, on my books right in the beginning of my journey. If I had someone to tell me, hey, do your due diligence as a contractor, go to the ROC, the Register of Contractors, and find out if he's got any complaints against him. Go to the Attorney General, talk to his previous clients, so just getting coaching and mentorship out of the gate would have been a lot better. I felt like, coaching was too expensive, but obviously it was way more expensive than the lesson that I learned. I'd rather have just paid for coaching. Yeah. So, well, before I let you go, I wanted to make sure that one more time, head over to Corey's Facebook page, and it's Geary as his last name. A lot of great resources there. New Age Wholesaling is a great place to reach out as well. But I'll make sure to have all these links in the show notes. But Corey, this has been a great conversation. It's always great to get people started in wholesaling. But before I let you go, one last question for you. What question do you wish I would have asked you here today? Maybe like what some of my favorite books are. One of my favorite books is Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. It's an amazing book. This is stuff for, especially if you're starting to get into wholesaling or any kind of entrepreneurship journey, you want to change your mindset, because it's 80% mindset, 20% tactics. And just absorbing yourself in books, that are going to change your mindset would be huge. And so that's my favorite book, Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. I've read it 4 times. Recommend it to everybody who's starting their entrepreneurship journey. No, that's great. And I have a feeling we probably could spend an entire episode just on mindset, because when we talk about return on investment, I don't think there is a bigger ROI that can be had than getting your mind right. That's absolutely correct. I always say real estate saved my life because I was not in a very good place in my life, mentally, physically, and spiritually, plus financially, before I got into real estate. And real estate's kind of shifted all that for me. So it's been an amazing journey for me.
Well, thanks for your time, Corey. You're always welcome back, and I hope we can chat again sometime.
All right. Thank you so much for having me, Jack. Appreciate it.
This has been the REI Mastermind Network. You can already tell that we've made some changes, and a few more are on the way. If you are interested in what we have planned, head over to patreon.com/REI Mastermind and support the show today. Financial contributions are always appreciated, along with a like, share, and review. It really helps us grow and reach more people with this valuable information. See you next time, and tell a friend.